Senegal's President Macky Sall on Monday ended months of tense uncertainty by saying he would not seek a third term next year, clearing the way for open elections in the West African nation, long considered a bastion of democracy in a troubled region. Sall had, until now, remained coy about his ambitions, stoking tensions over whether he would use a constitutional revision to argue he could extend the country's traditional two-term maximum. He said, and I quote, "My dear fellow citizens, my decision after long consideration is to not be a candidate in the election on the 25th of February, 2024. He said this in a televised address and went on to say, Senegal is more than me and is full of capable leaders of the country's development. Sall said he had sought to prioritize his country's progress, in particular at a time of social economic difficulty and uncertainty. Well, we have a research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, Dr. Kettering Onor. He joins us now to discuss Macky Sall's decision and what it means for Senegalese politics. Welcome to Newsday, Dr. Onor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me once again.
Thank you. And as we see, the tensions have been eased a little bit. It seems like Macky Sall's announcement to not run for another term is going down well. How will the members of his party take it? And also, might he have a political successor? What is your opinion?
Well, from all indication, we don't know any political successor for now. But maybe, as is usual with African governments, it's always easy, difficult for them to hand over to oppositions, you understand? But, it's a welcome development that at this particular point in Senegalese history, that he has come out to clear the air, that he's not going towards the constitutional revision again, that the two-term is now staying, that there is next election coming up by February 2024, that is not going to contest. So I believe that that single pronouncement without the tension.
Well, I actually have a couple of questions. I mean, it's good that he has come out to clear the air, but did he have to wait so long? Several people have died. Who is to blame? Who should be held responsible for those deaths? Then why does the issue of third term keep coming up, in African politics?
Well, when we talk about this issue of third term, let's go back to 2016. In 2016, the Senegalese government had a constitutional revision. It was initially two-term, and the first term was actually 7 years because he started from 2012 and he ended the first term 2019. But before he could end the first term, there was a constitutional revision that now made it 5 years. And his supporters were of the view that the term spent before that constitutional revision shouldn't count. But because of the widespread opposition, he has come out in a clear time to state that he's not going for the third term. So, and if you talk about African, maybe head of state trying to maybe clamor for third term, we know that part of our problem in this, I think my name is spelled wrongly, Kester, Onor. So we know part of the problem in this part of the world is the sit-tight syndrome of our leaders. Yes, democracy is not built in a day. We are moving towards a better democracy.
What about the timing of his announcements? Couldn't they have done it earlier when people were on the streets protesting, dying?
Well, I think it's as a result of maybe enormous pressure, both from internal and external forces, that has made him to come out and do what he has done now, Because even from the protest, according to government sources, about 16 lives has been lost, while Amnesty International put the lost at about 24, but even the opposition, they are claiming that it's about 30. You understand? Because of the violent protests that are erupted in the preparation towards the election.
And it seems that his opposition, Ousmane Sonko, is, he's been jailed for 2 years, to my understanding, under house arrest. He was the main opposition to go up against Macky Sall if he did go for another term. I know I asked you this already, but who could be the next individuals that could be placed to take over, presidentially speaking?
Well, I don't think that we've heard the last about Ousmane Sonko, considering the violence that erupted in major cities in Senegal. And even, the incumbent president has been accused. One, they talk about the perception of a weaponized justice system. And then they equally talk about arbitrary detention of opposition figures. That is the Mr. Sonko that has been detained. And it's equally good to know that even the first accusation of rape, he has been cleared of that of rape, but he is now charged of corrupting the mind of the youths. I believe that maybe with the way things are, they should revisit some of these issues in the coming days.
But would you say that with this announcement, the playing field has been leveled for, any politician that wants to contest in the presidential election?
Well, the playing field has not been leveled, but I think the atmosphere is now getting clearer. When we have to consider the power of incumbency in elections like this, that even if he's not contesting, at least he still has that room maybe to anoint a candidate, who will cover his track while in office.
And with his announcement, we're hoping that the protests will die down. So could you say that the protests were successful in putting enough pressure on Macky Sall to make this announcement? And do you also feel like they will completely stop? Or is this a situation where the cost of living and other issues that are going on in Senegal might start to poke at the sides of the Senegalese, and they might come out into the streets to protest another issue?
Thank you very much. I believe that the opposition may even capitalize on this announcement for them to strengthen their cause.
Right.
Remember that the clashes erupted in Senegal. That's after the opposition figure was jailed, maybe sentenced to 2 years in prison. That was on June 1. So having announced his intention not to go for the third term, I believe that at least the opposition would have, they would be empowered for them to equally, agitate, and press further to make sure that even the violation of human rights and the muzzling of civil liberties, that all those areas that at least they can equally make their mark and make sure that government, at least next election, be free and fair.
Now, earlier you talked about the president, giving way to internal and external pressures, to make this announcement. But I know that some people believe it was actually the pro-democracy protests that forced the president, to drop his third-term bid. So I'm wondering if there are lessons, that Nigeria and Nigerians, can learn, especially when we have leaders who usually try to stifle protests with court injunctions. Are there any lessons that we can learn from this?
I think there are lessons to learn in every situation, not just about this one in particular. Everything that takes place in Africa and in the world as a whole. Because when we talk about protests, like as we are talking now in Paris is burning. You understand, for some days now, the President Macron has been holding series of meetings with the security forces and all these things. So when we talk about protests, it's not just about Africa. I think it cuts across the entire globe. So we are learning lessons from what is happening outside. And I think they too are learning lessons from us. In the recently concluded election in Sierra Leone, you can see them, at least the losers, we admonish that they should learn lesson from what happened in Nigeria. So learning lesson is not maybe from a particular region. We are learning from each other.
In Sierra Leone, they learned how to take it to court, as we have been told so many times here, after issues. What is to become politically for Macky Sall? What is his political future looking like now?
At this particular point, we may not begin to talk about his political future, considering the fact that we've not maybe seen his maybe anointed successor or a candidate that maybe he is going to anoint. Then we begin to talk about his political future, maybe when his anointed candidate failed to win the election. You understand? But In all these things, it's just about elites, and they have a way of settling their issues.
Now, finally, while making his announcement, President Macky Sall said he will not run as a candidate, as we've said earlier, but he said that even though the Constitution grants him the right to run, but he will not be running. So will a constitutional review or probably an amendment, help prevent such controversy and unrest going forward?
When we talk about constitutional issues, I think it's within the third realms of government, that is the judiciary, for them to interpret the Constitution. He may even think that Constitution grants him the right, but it's now left for the court to determine whether he has such right. But we may not proceed, considering the fact that he has already thrown in the towel that he's not going for the third term. So I believe that because he has been there for the first 7 years, and in the second 5 years, he will be maybe ending by 2024. So I think he has served his 2 term. You understand? So, and the government is a continuum. He cannot say because there was a constitutional revision in 2016, so the other one he has served will be out of the equation. No, I think he has served his 2 term. But it's now left for the Senegalese court to determine what the Constitution says maybe on those issues.
And we will all be watching, well, the eyes of the world will be watching from now until February to see how this plays out. Dr. Onor, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on Newsday and for this discussion.
Thank you once again for inviting me.